Look at that. That's pretty good. Obviously, Chris, I'm going to come to lots of things from throughout your career. Some that I will love, some that they will love, some that you will love. We're going to turn over to the audience almost immediately. Throw your hands up for your questions. Tim will come and find you. But I'm going to start with, are you the sexiest vampire to ever grace the screen?
It's not for me to say. I think it would be not only immodest, but perhaps inaccurate, but, you know, the audience decides.
Jerry Dandridge, for me. As a kid, I saw Fright Night at an incredibly young age. I was possibly like 6, 7.
What?
I know. And bizarrely, I'd also seen Rear Window at a bizarrely young age. So the parallels between those two films, for me, were incredible. Your performance in Fright Night is just up there for me. It's just, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Eating the apple, the seductive glances, just fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes. So, with that in mind, what was your influence taking that job? Where did you bring Jerry from?
Well, I have to give Tom Holland all the credit in the world, because first of all, he wrote a great script. And I remember very vividly when I got the script, at the time, I had been doing a lot of quote-unquote prestige work. I had done A Tale of Two Cities for CBS, and I actually shot it here and in Paris. And I had gotten an Academy Award nomination for Dog Day Afternoon, and I was thinking pretty hot stuff, right? And I got the script, and I thought, well, I can't do a movie called Fright Night. And this was in the 80s when horror was not as acceptable in the sort of general culture as it is now. And I thought, well, you know, they've asked me to read the script because they want me to do the role. I should read it and give them the courtesy of reading it. And I started reading it, and within 5 minutes, I was completely sucked into this script. I thought it was one of the best scripts I'd ever read. And when I finished reading it, I said, I have to meet this guy who wrote it and is going to direct it. And, excuse me, we met in Los Angeles. I sat down and we started talking. And Tom Holland said, do you want me to tell you how I'm going to make this movie? And I said, yeah. And he literally described every shot in the movie from the beginning to the end. He had it all in his head. And when he finished, I said, hand me the contract. I'm ready to go. And from then on, I pretty much put myself in Tom's hands, because he had a very, very strong and specific vision of who Jerry was. And he was also very collaborative when it came to ideas. I had a couple of ideas that we put into the movie, which we'll talk about at another time, because I'm giving you a very long answer to a short question.
No, it's a good answer. It's a really good answer. And obviously the collaboration between yourself and Tom Holland continued with another movie, or was Fright Night?
No, Child's Play was also Tom, yeah.
Yeah, that was after Fright Night.
Yes, correct.
Before we dive into Child's Play, we've got a question.
Hi.
Hello.
And I may have to, you will all forgive me, because I'm not used to a lot of the accents that I'm hearing today. So if I misinterpret you, I may have to have some translation here.
I got you covered.
Sorry, leading kind of away from the vampire, more into your role in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Personally, there's quite a bit of debate on if it's more of a kind of a Halloween film or a Christmas. And what would you kind of say it's more leaning towards?
I've been asked this question any number of times, and I do a number of conventions where Ken Page is also a guest, the guy who played Oogie Boogie. And we've created an act where we literally, when the question happens, we look at each other and we go, both. So that's my answer. I think it's, you know, a valid movie for both holidays, and most people that I talk to watch it at either one time or the other, or at both times, so, you know.
Do we have any Nightmare Before Christmas fans here? Is everybody in this room aware that this man is Jack Skellington? Did you think that that would become what it has?
Oh, You know, here's a little story about how I really started feeling like the movie was going to be special. I had seen a number of the scenes that were already animated to Danny Elfman's singing voice, right? They had animated the songs first, so I got a chance to watch them, not in full kind of color correction color, but nonetheless. And also I got to visit the sets in the studio where we were shooting at in San Francisco. And after the film was finished, there were some of the lines that I wanted to go over again, and Tim Burton wanted to do the same. So he and I got together after the movie was completed, and we worked on some of the lines again. Not all of them, but some of them. And in preparation for that, they sent me a black and white cassette, VHS cassette, with a time code running across the bottom of it, which is sort of it's the beginnings of, this is a way to look at the movie and see if there are notes you want to take. And so I was in Los Angeles at the time shooting a movie, and I put the cassette in the machine, and I started watching. I had my little notepad to take my notes, and suddenly I realized there were 3 children sort of creeping up behind me, my 3 kids, obviously not strange children from the street. And my kids had walked into the room and they saw this thing, black and white, mind you, okay? And they were, for the entire, and I sat there for like an hour and a half, you know, because I paused it at times, whatever. And I realized at the time that this was something magical that was happening. And of course, you know, it's historically has become, I can't tell you how not only popular it's become in so many households, but also how influential it's been in a lot of young people's lives. Because I got a lot of grown-up people who come up and say to me, one woman, and I remember in particular, who said, my parents were drug addicts, and the movie was, your voice babysat me when I was a child. And so it's extraordinary, I think, what's happened with the film. Understandably, because to me, it's the most unique animated movie ever made, to me, anyway.
Henry Selick's work on that film is spectacular. And
yeah,
he puts little Jack cameos in his later work. So you're in Coraline, you're in James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah, right.
It's incredible. It didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't do so well on initial release, did it?
No.
And
the
then
movie was, it did all right originally, but it's grown exponentially over the years until, I mean, I don't know about Halloween here, but in the United States, Jack Skellington and Sally are Halloween, right? Everywhere. They're everywhere. They sell now at the Home Depot, which is the home supply store in the States. They sell a 15-foot high statue of Jack that sings and that people put in their yards at Halloween. I posted a picture on my Instagram of somebody who'd done it in their apartment in Manhattan in New York City, where they'd had this huge, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy what's happening.
Being the mailman walking into that garden, what's this? What's this?
What's this? What's this? Right.
There's something 15 foot in the air.
Yeah.
I don't know about these guys, but at Christmas in my house, we have A Nightmare Before Christmas tree topper, which is Jack. We have the baubles. We don't put decorations up anymore. We bought all the Nightmare Before Christmas Funko Pops.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
My missus loves it. My kids love it. I'm a big sucker for musicals.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Do you ever think they should do a second one? I mean, I know you've voiced Jack in other projects, but do you think it's time to do a second one, or do you think leave it as it is?
Personally, how do you sequel perfection? Yeah. To me, it's a perfect little movie. And also, I know that Tim Burton has been quoted as saying basically the same thing. Why would I do this again when the movie turned out so beautifully and it's become such an extraordinary part of many cultures?
Yeah. I agree with that entirely, but I would like to see Jack go into Thanksgiving land and beat up a turkey or something. I think that'd be quite good. Where's our next question?
And just a quick note, Henry Selick has added his thoughts to this, which is not necessarily that there be a sequel, but that there might be a prequel to the movie, which is, I guess, an interesting idea.
I'd like that, definitely.
But again, Tim is the final word.
Has anyone got a question for Chris? I definitely thought...
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
I definitely thought I saw a hand up. While we're waiting for... Oh, there we go.
Mike going over here.
Hi, my name is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey, when you were first asked... when you first voiced Jack Skellington, how did it feel to be voicing quite a great character? I don't know. Sorry. I'm just so nervous to be.
It's okay. Don't worry.
That's okay. Okay. What was your favorite part of The Nightmare Before Christmas that you thought was beautiful?
Well, frankly, now that I look back on it, my favorite part of the movie is Jack sitting in his little lair, going over all the chemical formulas and, trying to figure out the formula for Christmas, thinking that that's the way to do it. Also, I was blessedly given the actual blackboard that Jack wrote on that I have in my home, and I have maybe 4 or 5 of the heads that the producers gave me, so that's the memory that I hold the dearest.
Hi, Chris. You just mentioned sequels before. What did you think of the Fright Night sequel?
What did I think of it? You mean the one that with Colin Farrell and yeah, I thought they did a nice job. It's not the original, nor is any sequel. And they came at it with a great reverence. They love the movie. I know Colin, when I arrived on the set, because I did a little cameo in the movie, right? And Colin came to my trailer the first day I got there and brought me a signed copy of the Nosferatu, the original way back, more now movie, a couple of bottles of rare wine, and he was almost genuflecting because he'd watched the movie when he was young. He said he and his sister watched the movie like 50 times, so they loved it. And I think it was approached with that kind of affection, of not remaking it so much as reimagining it. So I thought they did fine. It's never going to be the original, never, yeah.
Before we go on to the next question, does everyone like the Fright Night remake? I think it's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the original. I really like the remake. And when I found out that you were going to be cameoing in the remake, I was so excited. Does everybody know what happens to Chris in the Fright Night remake? You get your throat bitten out in about 10 seconds?
Oh, yeah. I was literally was there and gone. But they sent me the script and they said, would you do something in the movie? Tell us what you want to do. And I thought that was kind of fitting that the new Jerry Dandridge consumes the old one. So that's why that scene occurred. And they were great, by the way. They were really lovely. Wonderful group of people, too, that cast. Lovely. I think somebody right here wants to ask a question. Oh, no, there first.
Were there any memorable moments when you were making The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Memorable moments? I think I described the one with my kids, definitely, and also just the first time walking into the building where they were making it. It had a kind of, there was an aura about it, that the work, the movie itself, actually, they shot 11 seconds a week of usable film because of the stop-motion animation. So just the sense of awe at the work that these animators were doing. I mean, I still feel, between the work that Henry Selick did directing it and the animators, I'm still kind of blown away by that.
Okay. So, Chris, in Fright Night, you have the nightclub scene, the big dance choreography.
Yep.
I want to ask, was that I imagine that wasn't the song that was there that you was practiced to. Was there like a plan, do you know what song you choreographed to? Was that the right one? And how long did that take?
I must be frank in that I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I do remember that it was something very sexy and that it was choreographed. We had a choreographer and we worked on it for a number of hours before we did it. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. The whole scene was hard, but the dance was great. And also Amanda, who's now a lifelong friend, as is everybody in the cast. By the way, whenever we get together, it's like crazy time, this cast, because we have become very close, all of us. And I was just telling somebody when I was sitting at my table that it's the kind of group where, I don't know if you have friends like this, where the expression in the States is you rag each other, you sort of give each other a hard time. Well, with this group, because Jonathan Stark was originally a groundling, an improvisational actor, and also created a situation comedy, The World According to Jim, which ran for a while. And Bill Ragsdale is one of the funniest people in the world, as is Amanda. So it's a great group. We have a great time together.
We had Bill, Amanda, and Stephen last year here. And obviously things didn't link up in time. Everything you say there, I stood watching them, waiting to come on for their Q&A, just destroying each other.
Oh, destroyed.
And our other stage host was like I'm just going to make sure I pronounce your names correctly. And he went, is it Amanda Beers or is it Amanda Beers? She went, it's Beers, like Hearse, where I'll put you if you get it wrong. And Tony went, okay. Tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Very smart people, very funny.
Oh, we've got another one down the front. Hello.
Hi, Chris. I was just wondering, how long did you sit in makeup for Fright Night?
Depends on the makeup. The intermediate makeup was maybe 3 or 4 hours. The final makeup, the Nosferatu makeup, 8 hours. No special effects, no CGI. It was all appliances. I'd come in at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd sit down in the chair, and a guy by the name of Kenny Diaz, who was the one who actually did the practical makeup, had been sleeping in the trailer, and then he'd get up, he'd go, all right, let's go. Let's rock and roll. And he'd make me up for 8 hours. And one of the things that I did to stay sane was that they let me make up the hands. Because I come from the theater, so I'm used to working with makeup. So it gave me something to do for 8 hours. Otherwise, I was nuts. So they let me blend the latex in the fingers, and also to do the stippling and to all that. It was exhausting, but fun. And then I go to work at noon and work for 8 hours, go home, go to sleep, and come back again at 4 o'clock in the morning for like a week, I think.
Before we move on to our next question, I was asked, you alluded to it earlier, to ask you about working with Peter Cushing on A Tale of Two Cities. What was that like, learning from someone like Peter Cushing? Was it, obviously at that time, he was well into his career, it was like early days for you. What was it like seeing an icon like him? Did you get anything from him? What was he like on set?
Well, first of all, my first day of rehearsal on A Tale of Two Cities, I walked into the rehearsal room, and Peter Cushing was sitting at a table, maybe about 15 or 20 feet away from me, and he had on a white glove with the fingertips cut off, and a cigarette. So the white gloves were to keep the cigarette from staining his fingers, right? And he was, hello, dear boy, how are you? So good to see you. Lovely to meet you. And he couldn't have been more gracious, more wonderful, lovely, lovely man. Of course, at the time, there was a kind of scandal of the fact that I was coming in to play Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton. And so British Equity created a kind of storm, and I had to leave the country for the entire rehearsal period. They put me in a hotel in Paris, and I waited until British Equity and the Labor Board and the American producer worked it out. And then I came back, and literally the first day of shooting, they flew me in from Paris. I got off the plane, put on my wardrobe, and walked on the set. And started the movie.
That's great. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like unions and stuff back then. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Vampire movies were kind of reinvented in the mid-'80s with Fright Night, then Vamp, then The Lost Boys, all in succession. I was wondering who inspired you for playing Dandridge. Which vampires of the past did you look at, perhaps, to build your own character of Dandridge?
Well, certainly a lot of that's built into the script, right? Because a lot of the movie is an homage to vampires past, particularly Nosferatu and Dracula. I think Tom Holland's references predated a number of the movies that came kind of in between. And also, Tom felt very strongly that the genre, the vampire movie genre, had kind of fallen on hard times because people were satirizing it. Love at First Bite was one of the movies. I'm not putting down the movies. I'm just saying that he felt that they weren't being taken seriously. And so the great thing to me that he did was that he found a way to have fun with the genre without making fun of it. And that's an important distinction. That there's always affection there. At the same time, there is humor. So I think we were all guided by that. And also Tom constantly was saying to me, okay, this time when you walk into the scene, do it so that I won't use the language that Tom used, but if you know that the character has to really look desirable. There's another word I won't use, okay?
I think I know what that word is.
Right.
So we'll roll on from Fright Night. Sticking with Tom Holland, you went on to do Child's Play a couple of years later.
Right.
You're all a fan of Child's Play. And we've got Brad Dourif with us today, who's Chucky. Did you? I mean, obviously, I've asked this question. Did you think Child's Play would have the lifespan it had?
No, actually. I'm very surprised by it. I knew that there were going to be sequels because there was one done almost immediately after the movie opened and did really well. No, I didn't.
Because we're on, 7 movies and 3 seasons of a TV show now, and it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Amazing.
How was it filming that? Because obviously, was it challenging acting with a puppet, or was it a little person in a costume?
It was all of those things.
Yeah.
It was a little person, it was a child, it was the animatronic sort of figure that they used a lot. Chucky was a son of a bitch to work with. He was a tough cast member to deal with in all of his iterations.
Every version.
Yeah.
I know Brad played Charles Lee Ray at the start of the movie. Was Brad on set doing the voice, or did you act to someone else and it was added later?
The only time that I was around with Brad was that opening sequence.
Scene.
Yeah, and that's the only time I was exposed to Brad. Otherwise, and I honestly don't remember how they were using the voice, because I think the voice had to be laid in later. I don't think there was any way to do it live.
You couldn't live react to it?
Yeah.
We got a question, another one down the front.
Hi, Chris. I first watched you in The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I thought you were amazing as Jack Skellington.
Thank you.
And with all the great acting roles you did with Fright Night and Child's Play, what is the important distinction between the voice acting that you did for Jack Skellington, and then between all the other in-person films? I hope that question makes sense.
Yeah. Essentially, the voiceover acting for animation is you go into a studio with a director and you go over the lines over and over and over again. And with Henry, it was a lot of times he would give me a line reading to try, or he would say, try it this way, try it that way, or give me 5 just off the top of your head. So it sort of veered between being very sort of regimented in terms of what the director wanted, and then wildly improvisational at times, too. It's a real mix of the two, which is fun. It's great fun to do. With film acting or stage acting, it's a totally different animal. There's a heightened exaggeration in terms of it's not naturalistic acting. It's very, very heightened. That's the only way I can describe it.
You feel like you have to emote more to get it across because obviously there's
you have to really punch it out there.
Well, speaking of great acting, which you do a lot, you were Oscar nominated for Dog Day Afternoon. As an actor, being Oscar nominated, how did that feel? Was that like validation, or was it a surprise, or how did that make you feel?
It was icing on the cake in a way, because the experience was so great, because the acting, you're working with Al Pacino and you're working with John Cazale. I wasn't working with John, but I was mostly working with Al. And we worked, the director of the movie, Sidney Lumet, who you guys may be familiar with from Serpico, from King of New York, from what was the Paul Newman lawyer movie? I can't remember the name. At any rate, it's a great, great director, Sidney Lumet, directed the movie, and beforehand we rehearsed like it was a play. We went on into a rehearsal room, all the sets were taped out on the floor, and you rehearsed it for 2 or 3 weeks. So it was a great experience in a lot of ways.
Working with Pacino, especially in the 70s, bouncing back and forth, was there ever any moments where you just thought, this is awesome, this is what I want to do?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And because Al and I shot our scenes separately, that is the phone conversation I had with Al Pacino, we were never together on the set. So we got together just to rehearse maybe 4 or 5 times before we went actually to shoot our respective scenes, and they were shot on different days.
Wow.
Totally different days.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane. We've got more questions over to this side.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad I finally made it.
But also, I just want to ask, what would your advice be to someone who's trying to build a career in acting? Especially in this ever-changing industry, because it can just be so hard.
The first word that comes to mind is don't. And I don't mean, no disrespect, but it's hard. It's the kind of industry where, for instance, we just finished with a strike, with a SAG-AFTRA strike, right? I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but of the members of the union at any one time, and I think there are 150,000 members maybe, that 80% of them are out of work. I tell this story all the time. Yeah, I hope you're not tired of it. But when one of my daughters was 5 years old, she and a friend were sitting with another friend and a mom, and they were talking about what their parents did, and the mom was saying, yes, you know what mommy does. Yes, mommy works in an office. You know what daddy does. Yeah, he makes wires in houses. He's an electrician, that's right. And then they turned to my daughter and she said, you know what your daddy does, don't you? And my daughter said, yeah, he looks for work. And that was their experience of me. I was on the phone all the time about an audition or, where I was going next, or, I was home a lot and I was away a lot. So to distill it, it has to be a calling. It can't be something that just seems like it's romantic and attractive and interesting and you want to be a celebrity. It has to be something that somewhere inside of you have to do. And then the next piece of advice would be just make sure you get a good education, whether it's university or whether it's just educating yourself, because you're reflecting the world. You're reflecting, every one of you people here, and that's a big responsibility.
It's a great answer. It's what happens when you get great questions and I'm like, what's your favourite colour? Unbelievable.
Thank you for setting me up.
We've got one more over there and then we're going to move to the middle. Tim.
Hi, Chris. When I was 7, I realised that you were the reason that I started watching horror films. You not only were the best vampire, but you also portrayed like the best horror films in general. So when it came to the end of the films, and I watched it numerous times, I always said to myself, this guy has to be in number 2. Like, was there a possibility that you would have done number 2 as you as the main star? Was you considering it? Did you want to do it?
Are you talking about Fright Night?
Fright Night 2, sorry, yeah.
I felt the same way basically about Fright Night that Tim Burton feels about A Nightmare Before Christmas. I thought we did it, and why do it again? Regardless what the approach is. And they did, you know, a lovely job. But, and also I had moved on in my career. I was doing other stuff. So it was not a judgmental thing as much as it was both logistic and also just a frame of mind. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Chris. You mentioned at the start that you mentioned at the start that you mentioned at the start that you got to add your own parts to Fright Night. Can you tell us about those?
She said you mentioned at the start you got to collaborate and add your own parts to Fright Night. She wonders if you could elaborate on that a bit more.
Oh, yes, thank you. Well, one of the things that everybody asks, and I hope I haven't answered this too often, is that why are you eating fruit in the movie, right? Well, Tom Holland, one of the things, he was an actor when he was a younger guy, right? And so he was trained to work with actors in terms of finding background, so that when you're working in a scene, you don't bring the background necessarily with you literally, but you do in terms of your preparation, right? So I'm trying to think, well, how do I prepare for a guy who's been living for 400 years? And I started, looking into the origins of the vampire legend of Vlad the Impaler and all that stuff. But also, I thought, well, maybe he's got some bat DNA in him somewhere. So I started reading about bats, and I had no idea that 90% of the bats that exist in nature are not vampire bats. They're fruit bats. So I thought, well, would it be interesting to have Jerry eating fruit in the movie? And I went to Tom Holland, and Tom said, I love it, let's do it. So he let me work it in, and he also came up with some of the most brilliant stuff. That one scene where Charlie is hiding, and Jerry's coming out with a coffin or something, I can't remember exactly. And Jerry's eating an apple, and he takes a big chunk out of it, and then he throws it to where Charlie is, and it rolls into the shot, and there's a huge bite out of it. I mean, that's, you can't plan that, but Tom took it, and he just went with it. And the other one was, I just mentioned to Tom, I said, well, what if this girl reminds Jerry of somebody from the 1800s or the 1700s, somebody that he had been in love with at one time, a love that he lost. And Tom loved that, so he had a portrait of Amanda painted in a period costume, and he used that as well. So we used the fruit all the way through the movie, and Tom was always, saying to me, what do you think of this? What do you think about this? How about that? So it was a great collaborative sort of relationship that we had.
We've got 5 minutes left, so we've got a question down the front and possibly one or two more. Hi.
Hi, I'm Tay. I didn't I'm Tay. I'm 11.
Hi,
did
11.
you know that Child's Play was going to be so big? And why did you choose, your role in it?
I'll answer your second question first. I chose the role because Tom asked me to do it. He and I had worked on Fright Night just previous to that movie, and I thought it would be fun. Little did I realize it would be as hard as it was. It was freezing cold in Chicago while we were shooting. It was probably in Celsius, maybe 5-10 degrees below zero, with wind coming off the lake, made it feel much colder. And I answer the first part, which was Tom Holland asked me to do it, and I wanted to be in the film.
Oh,
thank you.
We've got one in the middle. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, off of horror completely. My earliest memory of you is The Princess Bride.
Yes.
I love you in that. But seriously, out of all of the varieties of films you've made, who's your favorite character you've ever played?
I have 4 children actually. I have a stepson and 9 grandchildren. You just asked me which one of them is my favorite. I can't really, especially the movies that you guys are here for, because all of them, maybe Child's Play was just tough physically, but they've all been great experiences. I've learned from them. The Princess Bride was special because the cast was such an interesting group of people, and funny. And also getting to work with people like, I mean, I didn't get to work much with André, for instance. Any wrestling fans out here?
Hey!
Well, André was one of the sweetest human beings alive. You want to hear a Princess Bride story?
Yeah.
Okay. My kids at the time my daughters were 4 and 2.5, right? And I'm going off to make The Princess Bride here. We were shooting in Sheffield, and we were also shooting in London at Shepperton.
Wow, yeah.
And when I told my girls that I was going away, because they were going to come and join me later, we decided we didn't want the kids to be on location because there was nothing for them to do. So I said, well, I'm going away, and I'm going to do a movie about a princess. Nothing. I'm going to be doing a movie about a king. I'm going to be playing a prince. Nothing. And, and also there's a giant in the movie. A giant? A giant, Daddy? You're working with a giant? What does he look like? Is he as big as a house? Is he as big as a car? Is he as really, really big? Is he going to pick you up when you... Well, from then on, I was like 0, and André was, 1,000. Every time I spoke to my kids, whenever I was calling home to say hello, hi, sweetie, it's Daddy. How I do? Did you seen the giant yet, Daddy? Is he as big as a house? As big as a car? Is he really, really, really big? How really big? So finally, they come to England. And I said to André, do you mind if I bring them to the set someday when I'm not working and they could meet you because they're dying? They talk of nothing else, right? Of course, boss. Yeah, bring them. So the day arrives, they're working in a place called Burnham Beeches outside of London, where the Brute Squad, and where André rescues Inigo Montoya, right? So I'm carrying one of my kids, and my ex-wife is carrying another, and he's got a huge trailer, the size of this stage almost, because he couldn't fit into the makeup trailer, right? So we walk in, and I have to sort of pantomime it here. I've got a bum knee, so forgive me. And so I've got one of my kids, right? And so I walk in, and I walk around the corner, and Andre's over there, and he's sitting down. And I said, André, this is my daughter, and then the other daughter right there. And André stood up. And as soon as he stood up, my oldest daughter went, and she started screaming, and then the younger daughter started screaming. So now they're both screaming at the top of their lungs, and any of you who were over there a little while ago heard a little child screaming at the top of their... Well, this was like decibels above that. They wouldn't stop. So we literally had to take them away and leave. And as soon as I deposited them and they calmed down, I went back to André and I said, André, I'm so sorry that this happened. And he said, that's okay, boss. They either run to me or run away from me. And that's who he was. He lived a life where he was the most famous human being on the planet. Everywhere he went. And either people, he walked into a room and people crowded around him, or they fled. It was an extraordinary experience working with him, and the movie was as well, because it was a great, great set.
Hey! And that's all we've got. We've got one more question. We've got time for one more.
Hi there, Chris. My name's Wyn Evans. I've worked in special effects in prosthetic makeup. This is my own costume and design.
I can see.
Yeah, so from one vampire to another, I'll just have a quick look at the audience. There we are. Yes, there's a few nice necks there like to bite. What did you think of the prosthetic special effects makeup that you were wearing during the Fright Night film?
Oh, I have great admiration for the FX makeup people that worked on that movie, Steve and Kenny and all the guys who worked and all the people who were involved in it. They were extraordinary. But thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Please clap your hands for the incredible Chris Sarandon!